Hey guys, welcome back to my watercolor channel, and today I will paint some cherries. It's a wonderful summertime and they are delicious. So I will use a lot of wet to wet technique, which means that I will apply some water to the object. So in this case it's the cherry, and then I will add the paint. My colors, or my first layer, is basically cadmium red and a little bit of deep yellow, because I want it to be a bit more bright and warmer. So I apply the paint to the cherry, and then I try to see where the reflections are and where I can add more darker areas. As well, here I add some of the crimson red. Then I continue with the second cherry, so I have here twins. And I paint the same way as I have before. So just adding a little bit of water, then adding the first layer and spreading it with a thin brush. And as well adding to the side some of the crimson red. I try really to focus to leave some of the highlights, as well as to see what the shape looks like. While my cherries are drying, I will add the stem. So I mixed a green out of lemon yellow and some of the cobalt blue. And then I add a stronger cobalt blue to the green onto the stems, so it gives a really nice realistic form. I continue with my third one, and this third cherry is a little bit behind the twin cherry, so I mix a little bit of a purple. I want to have it darker there and have a nice cast shadow, but I continue the same way, so just adding some of the cadmium red, spreading it, and then as well adding some of the purple. And they're mixing nicely together, as I have wetted this cherry before. And then adding some of the crimson red. And add the stem, as well as some leaf there. It's basically a little bit of a lemon yellow, as well, the same color I have used before, but it went darkish. So a little bit looks a deep yellow, and then adding some of the cobalt blue and lemon yellow mixture, and then some more blue to the stem. And then spreading carefully the colors. I thought that I don't want to have the page too empty, so I have added a little bit of a turquoise blue to the foreground, and a very light layer. I have not wetted the paper before. But as well as adding some crimson red underneath the cherries. While the paper is still wet, I kind of really like it instead of having a very dark shadow. And the turquoise blue and the red mixing nicely together. And then adding some of the green. So it's giving a nice balance between those colors. And then I continue with the cherry. So now after everything has dried, I add the second layer. And I basically proceed the same way as I have done it with the first layer. So just adding some of the water and then adding a much stronger red. But I am still quite careful to keep the shape of the cherry. A bit of strong crimson red. And then looking where I can leave the highlights. I wanted to have a much stronger cast shadow or stronger colors in the cherry, so basically now mixing some light brownish color, and it contains some crimson red, some deep yellow, as well as some cobalt blue. So you can see it fits beautifully together with the rest of the crimson red, which is on the second layer. It's not too overpowering. Actually, I have noticed that painting cherries is relatively challenging, as they have a very shiny skin and very reflective of the environment. I have to keep this a little bit in mind. I continue with the second cherry as well, so the same way, adding some water and then some of the darker red mixture, as well as some of the brownish mixture to emphasize the darker areas of the cherry. And then emphasizing a little bit the edges of the second layer. I continue with the red one, so with the third one, so it needs to be a little bit more darker, especially as it contains the cast shadow of the second or the middle cherry. But here as well, I try to be careful that the two separated areas come out nicely, so it really gives a very nice round shape. And then improving a little bit on my other cherries as well. I continue with the shadows. Now I use the brownish color that I have used for the darker areas and some of the purple. They are very strong in color, and I wanted to add a little bit of an abstract idea in there, so I spread it with the water. Basically on one of the brushes is a strong paint, and on the other brush there's only water, so it helps me to create a nice wet-to-wet effect. Then I wet the cherries a little bit as well, and take off some of the hard edges, so it does not look right. And then add some of the cadmium red, so I have a very strong red color there, and I thought it fits much better. It gives some more darkness. And if you have some of the darker brown left, add a little bit there as well onto the sides. I continue with the background, so it's not that different from the foreground, and it's just a turquoise blue, a very light layer. I'm quite careful not to overpaint the cherries too much, and as well not to add too much color onto the stems. Here a bit of a darker turquoise blue, a little bit to the side, and then adding more purple, as well as adding some purple around the cherries or some red, so it's a bit blurry effect. And then some of the brownish color as well, so it's kind of a bit emphasizing the horizon line. So there's a bit of a difference between the foreground and the background. And then I'm still adding a little bit of more color to the cherries, so it's a very, very light layer of cadmium red, as well as some of the darker brownish color. Now the first and second layers coming through nicely. Then here more paint under the twin cherry. And use a bit of a purplish color. As well a dark color onto the cherry which lies behind those two. And that's basically it, just a very light layer there. And some red. But thank you very much for watching, and remember to subscribe. Bye!